Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack a truly fascinating true story that actually made its way all the way to the Supreme Court of India. At its core, this whole thing is about one incredibly simple concept: fairness. Our title today really just sets the stage perfectly. The story of fairness, Lokendra's fight for equality.
Right off the bat, I want you to imagine this scenario. You apply for a permanent, stable career position. You study for years. You absolutely nail the interview. I mean, you pass it perfectly. But then, when the job offers are actually handed out, you watch everyone else who interviewed with you get a secure, permanent job, while you're handed a flimsy, temporary contract for absolutely no reason at all. Ask yourself two simple words: fair or unfair? Just keep that question in the back of your mind as we go.
Section 1. A teacher's dream job. Let's meet the person at the center of all this. So back in 2013, our main character, a man named Lokendra Kumar Tiwari, applied for a regular, permanent assistant professor job at a prominent educational institute. And for a passionate teacher, this was literally the dream job. I want you to picture a whiteboard checklist with me for a second, and let's check off his qualifications. Checkmark 1, he has a PhD degree in information security. Checkmark 2, he's a medal winner with an outstanding academic record. Checkmark 3, he is an experienced teacher with over 3 years already under his belt at the college level. Basically, he checked every single box you could possibly check for this permanent position.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Section 2, the unfair job offer. This is where things take a shocking turn.
Lokendra applies, he gets called in for an interview, and the selection committee evaluates him. He did everything right. But the result? It basically boils down to 3 totally contradicting words: qualified, selected, denied. He was completely qualified. The committee even officially selected him as a great candidate. But then, he was inexplicably denied the actual permanent prize he applied for. Instead, out of nowhere, they offered him a temporary contract for just 12 months.
Now, think about the number 13. I really want to emphasize this. From that exact same interview process, sitting in the exact same room, the selection committee gave regular permanent jobs to 13 other teachers. 13 other people walked away with the exact advertised permanent prize.
But contrast that with an incredibly small number: 2. Out of everyone who succeeded, only 2 people, Lokendra and just one other candidate, were inexplicably handed a 12-month temporary contract at a fixed pay of just 40,000 rupees a month. That means no job security, no long-term promise, nothing.
To really wrap our heads around this disparity, I want you to picture a solid, sturdy brick house. That represents the permanent jobs the 13 others received. It's security, stability, a real place you can build a future. Now, right next to it, picture a flimsy, temporary tent. That represents the contract Lokendra got. Sure, it offers a little shelter for now, but man, it could blow away at any moment.
And that brings us to one massive question. A giant question mark. Why? Why in the world were the rules changed for just these 2 people? Because think about it. If Lokendra wasn't good enough for the permanent job, why hire him at all? And if he was good enough, why deny him the real job? Well, the craziest part of this whole shebang? The Institute had 0 recorded reasons for doing this. None. Section 3. The fight for fairness. This is where the struggle really begins.
Now, you might be wondering, well, why didn't Lokendra just walk away from such a bad deal? It all comes down to a legal concept called economic compulsion. In plain, everyday language, that just means Lokendra took that flimsy tent simply because he was unemployed and had to survive. He needed to feed his family. He protested verbally, sure, but he signed the contract because, honestly, he had absolutely no other realistic choice.
Let's trace just how long this fight lasted. In 2013, he gets the unfair offer. By 2014, the Institute actually temporarily canceled all the jobs due to a totally separate issue, before eventually giving the permanent roles right back to the 13 others, again leaving Lokendra stranded in his tent on a contract. He fought back in court, but look at 2019. He suffered a huge loss at the High Court. The lower judges actually dismissed his case, claiming that because he signed the temporary contract, he voluntarily accepted his fate, completely ignoring his desperation.
Section 4. The Supreme Court rules. This is where the highest court in the land steps in to review the facts.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the Supreme Court grounded their review. Lokendra didn't give up. He took this to the Supreme Court of India, and they looked straight at Articles 14 and 16 of the Indian Constitution.
For those of us who aren't lawyers, those articles guarantee equality before the law and equal opportunity in public employment. Basically, it means a government-backed institute simply cannot treat similar people completely differently without a very, very good reason.
Which brings us to the most glaring flaw in the employer's case: no reason recorded. When the Supreme Court judges scoured the official records of the selection committee, they found absolutely zero written justification for treating Lokendra any differently than the other 13 teachers. By hiring him law, they proved he was qualified, so denying him the permanent job was entirely arbitrary.
And let me tell you, the Supreme Court did not hold back. They called the employer's actions, and I quote, patently illegal and unconstitutional. In plain English, the highest judges in the land declared that changing the rules of a job offer for one single qualified person with zero reason completely shatters the basic rules of fairness in our society.
Section 5. Equality wins the day. A triumphant and well-deserved verdict.
The Supreme Court wasn't just going to sit there and point out the error, they actually fixed it. Regular appointment granted. They ordered the institute to finally step up and do what they should have done way back in 2013. They effectively tore down that flimsy tent and finally handed Lokendra the keys to the solid brick house he had earned all along, his permanent, regular job as an assistant professor.
Now, the court also had to balance the scales of justice practically here. On one side of the scale, seniority restored. Lokendra gets his rightful place in line, officially backdated to that original 2013 selection, so he doesn't lose his hard-earned rank compared to the 13 others. But, on the other side of the scale, no back wages. As a practical compromise, the court ruled he wouldn't get a massive payout of old money for the years he wasn't officially doing a permanent job.
So the crucial point is this: desperation doesn't justify unfairness. The lower courts basically said Lokendra couldn't complain because he signed the dotted line on that contract. But the Supreme Court entirely rejected that logic. They laid down the law, stating that an employer absolutely cannot exploit an unemployed person's need to survive as some sort of excuse to break the constitutional rules of equality. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative question to ponder. If you were the judge, how would you protect fairness in your own community? Lokendra's story proves that justice can take years and the fight can be incredibly exhausting. But holding institutions accountable to the basic standards of equality, it's absolutely vital for every single one of us. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and always keep looking out for fairness wherever you go. Catch you next time.